Hey everybody, this is Cecil Alexander with Jazz Lesson Videos, and today we're going to be talking about some ways of improving your straight-ahead jazz guitar playing. Straight-ahead is a form of traditional jazz rooted in bebop that's characterized by its use of functional harmony, complex linear structures, and intricate rhythms. All the materials that we're going to be covering today come from my latest course with Jazz Lesson Videos, Straight-Ahead Jazz Guitar. In the course, you'll find a comprehensive guide to approaching soloing over a wide variety of straight-ahead tunes within the Great American Songbook, as well as some more complex soloing techniques that I like to use in my play. You can find the link to the course in the description below, and feel free to use the coupon code STRAIGHT25 for an additional $25 off. So the first concept we're going to take a look at comes from the first section of the course, and it's going to be on incorporating more enclosures into your soloing. So another way that you can add interest to your bebop scale lines is through the use of enclosures and chromatic approaches that are outside of the scale. So the bebop scales are going to give you so much chromaticism by themselves. Like we have simple enclosures, for example, resolving the fourth to the third in the C major bebop scale. Here we have that F, D sharp into E, or the flat six into the fifth. And we have so many chromatic approaches, just like resolving the seventh to the sixth, and also just the bebop scale passing tone creates that chromatic approach from the sixth to the fifth. But you can also experiment with chromatic approaches that are a little bit more like decorative, I would say. Another example would be like, so this is an approach into the fifth, starting from a half step below. So we start on F sharp, G, G sharp, back down to F sharp, and then finally resolve to G the fifth. And the cool thing about this, because it's so tight chromatically, is that you can kind of move that around wherever you want to highlight pretty much any chromatic note. So I could do that on the flat six, resolving back into the fifth, and end up with a really tight chromatic line. Or maybe into the root, something kind of simple. Then descending the scale from there. And I could apply that to, again, every chromatic note, and I would practice it that way. So I would do the chord tones to start, descending the scale from there. The third, the fifth, and the sixth. And the non-chord tones, so the ninth, resolving the ninth to the root, the fourth, resolving the fourth to the third, descending the scale, and then finally the seventh, resolving to the sixth and going down the scale from there. And then also all of the notes outside of the scale, so the flat nine, sharp 9, sharp 11, flat 6, and the flat 7. And then I would do the same thing with the other two bebop scales as well. So the G dominant bebop scale, there's the root, the third, the fifth, and then the flat seventh. And then we have non-chord tones, so the natural ninth, the fourth, the sixth, and then on non-scale tones after that. So flat 9, sharp 9, sharp 11, flat 6, and natural 7. Then you have the E Phrygian dominant bebop scale. So chord tones, there's the root, the third, and the fifth. And then the flat seventh. Then you have the non-chord tones, so the flat 9, the natural 4, and the flat 6. Then you have non-scale tones after that. So the natural 9. So that one's interesting because you first enclose the natural 9, resolve it to a non-chord tone, and then resolve that to a chord tone. Then you have a sharp 9, which goes to flat 9, then to the root, sharp 11. Then the natural 6 and the natural 7. So once you've ran that through, multiple positions around the neck, whatever fingerings feel comfortable to you, you'll have total fluency with that chromatic approach. Next up, we're going to take a look at some concepts that come from the second section of the course. We're going to take a look at soloing around the melody of a tune using the tune Solar. So you could do this in a couple different ways. You could try taking one phrase, add the melody as written, and then improvising another phrase and kind of switching back and forth throughout the form. So if I took the first phrase and then I improvise from there, then I play the melody again. Next phrase of the melody. And then improvise again, and then the last phrase of the melody. Then we're back to C minor. So something like that in time might sound like this. Next, you can think about some different chord scale options to use through the form. So one thing that I like to do on the C minor major 7, you could also use the C melodic minor scale, which is going to be 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, natural 7, 1. But I also like to use two different bebop scales. So one would be the F dominant bebop scale. And sometimes I'll raise the 4th degree in that scale to the natural 7th, so you end up with this. And then I'll also use the G Phrygian dominant bebop scale, which is going to give you kind of a harmonic minor sound over the C's. Over the 2/5 into F major, I would just use the C dominant bebop scale, resolving to the F major bebop scale. So and you could also think about using some of those different substitutions through those 2/5. So a really common one to use would just be playing off of the tritone sub, which is 2 minor thirds away from your original dominant. So that's going to be G flat 7, resolving to F major 7. And then you could do the same descending, so E7 into E flat major bebop, or you just play the chords as is. So F minor 7 to B flat 7, just using the B flat dominant bebop scale, resolving to the E flat major bebop scale. Then on the 2/5 into D flat, we have the A flat dominant bebop scale to the D flat major bebop. And then the D minor 7 flat 5 to G7 at the end. Normally, if it were kind of more stretched out, like most of the 2/5s in the tune have been, I would use B flat dominant bebop over this D minor 7 flat 5, because that's going to be one of the arpeggios that's contained in that scale, into G Phrygian dominant bebop. But because it's a quick 2/5, you just have 2 beats per chord, I would just think of the scale for the 5 chord, so G Phrygian dominant bebop. You could also think of using B flat dominant bebop, so without any altered tensions, and that would kind of create an altered sound against that G Phrygian dominant. So that's kind of that B flat dominant over the G7 sound. And then you're back into the top of the form with that C minor major 7. Next up, we're going to take a look at a phrase from the third section of the course, which is going to come from a Hank Mobley solo on the tune This I Dig of You. This is a 2/5 line that's going to make use of the half-whole diminished scale. So we're going to be playing a 2/5 into E flat major 7, F minor 7, B flat 7, E flat major 7. It's going to start on beat 3 of the F minor 7. So we have 1, 2. Right. So we're going to start off with just a C minor triad against that F minor 7 down to F, and then we continue the kind of that idea of major seconds within like the half-whole diminished scale, thinking of B flat half-whole diminished. So there's our major second between G and F, B flat and A flat, and then D flat and B. Right. So we lead into the half-whole diminished scale stuff with more, natural dominant stuff or natural tensions on the dominant. So there's our natural 9, natural 4, and then we get into the diminished stuff from that G natural. So a couple different things that you could do with this line. The first would be to extract that triad that we use over the F minor 7. Triads are kind of a neglected, piece of melodic material, but they can really give you so much harmonic information. So, I could think, okay, C minor being used over B flat 7, again, that's going to give me tensions 9, 11, and the natural 7. What happens if I move that through the scale? Just thinking of diatonic triads. End up with D diminish, E flat major, F minor, G minor, A flat major, and then finally B flat major before getting back to that C minor at the end, 1 octave higher. So all of those are going to highlight different tensions against that B flat 7, and some of them are going to be more consonant than others. But again, I would try doing that exercise where you take whatever that new piece of melodic material is, first try to use it as a jumping off point for a line with improvisation or even just the bebop scale, and then try to lead into it with familiar stuff, whether that's improvisation or the dominant bebop scale. So if I try just improvising around this C minor triad. First, I'm going to try, thinking of F minor or B flat 7, I'm going to try using that idea as a jumping off point. Great, that's thinking of B flat 7. One more time, here's C minor. So once in the original register, and then also in the lower octave too. And then I also want to try to lead into this using improv. So and then, again, if you feel more comfortable using the bebop scale at this point, you could try just extending the idea using that B flat dominant bebop scale. So right, and even string together other bebop scale concepts with that. So what I did there is C minor triad, resolving that G to the 5th, which is F, and then doing a pivot arpeggio on F minor with that rhythmic variation. Right, so you're piecing together all these really small ideas to create longer lines. The second half of this line, which I think is really cool, is going to be this sort of half-whole diminished line. If you're not familiar with the half-whole diminished scale, it's an 8-note scale, similar to bebop scales, that's going to be symmetrical. So B flat half-whole diminished is going to be the same as D flat, E, and G, right? So the scale by itself off of B flat will be 1, flat 2, sharp 9, 3, sharp 4, 5, natural 6, flat 7, and then you're back to the root, the octave higher. So. And that's going to give you some interesting tensions against a dominant chord. You're going to have the sharp 9 sound like that. You could also add the flat 5 or the sharp 11. But kind of the sound of the half whole diminished scale is going to be this major triad stacked on top of like a dominant shell. So if I have B flat and A flat, and then I just put a G major triad on top of that, that's going to give me B flat 13, flat 9. So there's the flat 7, 3rd, 13, and flat 9, which is a really cool sound going into either E flat major or E flat minor. So, right? But within the scale, you know, major seconds are going to sound especially stark because we're so used to this half step sound being emphasized with diminished scale. So, you know, just kind of continuing this line up as a pattern, basically. We have after that D flat to B flat, we have E to D, G to F, and then we're back to B flat to A flat at the top. So, you know, you could use this as kind of like a little melodic cell in your lines if you wanted to. Or pick different starting points. Right, so there I started on that D flat and did the same pattern basically. Maybe even starting on the root instead. There's another resolution to E flat major. And you could continue the pattern for as long as you want. It's kind of a pattern that John Coltrane would use quite a bit, but he would kind of play around with the directions of it, not always just do ascending or descending. The last tip that we're going to check out comes from the final section of the course, where we're going to take a look at motivic development over the tune All the Things You Are. So the last soloing concept that we're going to talk about is going to be the use of motivic development. And luckily, the melody to this tune has kind of motivic development built into it. It's kind of a really simple motivic development idea that you can use is just playing the same scale degree or chord tone against every chord in a tune, or highlighting it in different ways. So in the melody of this tune, we have the flat third of F minor 7 into the flat third of B flat minor 7, the third of E flat 7, into the third of A flat major 7, into the third of D flat major 7, third of D minor 7 flat 5, and then the root of G7 into the third of C major 7. So, you know, what happens if we try to highlight different chord tones or different scale degrees in our soloing rather than just going. So that's highlighting the third. What happens if we highlight the fifth of every chord? So fifth of F minor 7 is going to be C. Fifth of B flat minor 7 is going to be F. Fifth of E flat 7 will be B flat. Fifth of A flat major 7 is E flat. Fifth of D flat major 7 is A flat. And then we have the flat 5 on D minor 7 flat 5 is A flat into the fifth of G7 and the fifth of C major 7. So again, you could just kind of highlight those in sort of a blocky kind of way. So, you know, thinking something like this. But you could also add more eighth notes around it, more rhythmic variation, just to kind of disguise that you're playing, you know, this kind of static voice leading through the entire tune. Another way that you can use motivic development is through the use of rhythmic motivic development. So just sticking to one rhythmic motif for the entirety of a tune. So maybe I pick kind of a dotted figure, which is really popular in, like, you know, rhythmic vocabulary in jazz, like something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, dot, 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 dot. Something that kind of goes over the bar line like that. So I might play through the changes of the tune sticking to that rhythmic motif. So something like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then kind of break out of it in certain moments as kind of a response to the call. Another way that you can use Motivic Development, especially over fast-moving changes, is kind of trying to stick to a specific range and just kind of altering specific notes to fit the chord changes. So, for example, maybe I just try to highlight A flat, or like the range from G to B flat in a soloing line. So maybe staying on A flat, or highlighting A flat against F minor 7, highlighting it against B flat minor 7, even sticking to it on E flat 7, and then on A flat major 7 it becomes the root, then on D flat major 7 it's the 5th, flat 5 on D minor 7 flat 5, flat 9 on G7, and then I have to move it down a half step to the 5th, or even up a half step to the 6th on C major 7. But maybe just, playing lines that stick to that range and just changing the line wherever you see fit, or maybe where it creates a dissonance against whatever chord you're on. So now I'm going to try out these Motivic Development concepts through the changes of All the Things You Are. All right, everybody, that concludes our video for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of these materials. And if you feel like digging a little bit deeper, feel free to check out the full course in the description below and use the coupon code STRAIGHT25 for an additional $25 off. I'll see you next time.